Mary Tyler Moore is usually remembered mid-smile, tossing that famous hat into the Minneapolis sky, turning a city sidewalk into one of television's most cheerful little revolutions. She made independence look funny, stylish, and totally normal at a time when that still felt new on primetime TV. But the woman behind Mary Richards lived through a much harder private story than the opening credits ever suggested. In her final years, her husband, Dr. Robert Levine, watched diabetes slowly take away one of the things she valued most, her independence. Drop a comment below and tell us which Mary Tyler Moore role you remember first, Laura Petrie, Mary Richards, or one of her later dramatic performances. Because behind the laughter, the fame, and the warm TV memories was a painful final chapter, and Mary Tyler Moore's husband later revealed the sad truth of her final days. The smile everyone knew.
You know what? You got spunk.
Well,
I hate spunk.
look, I'm not sure if this fits right.
Oh, that's terrible.
Well,
No, I forgot the most important part. It must be in the car. I'll be right back.
Oh. She designed this. Sherry did. She designed it.
For millions of viewers, Mary Tyler Moore seemed almost impossibly alive on screen. On the Dick Van Dyke Show, she helped change what a sitcom wife could look like. Laura Petrie was playful, sharp, stylish, and modern. She was not just standing in a kitchen waiting for the next joke to happen around her. Then came the Mary Tyler Moore Show, where she became Mary Richards, a single working woman building a life on her own terms. The show was funny, but it also quietly shifted television. Mary was allowed to date, work, fail, laugh, and keep going without the whole story being about finding a husband. That public image mattered because Moore's later struggles were so opposite from the energy people associated with her. She had started as a dancer. Movement was part of her identity. Her body was not just how she worked, but how she expressed joy. By the end, Dr. Robert Levine said diabetes had taken a terrible toll on her vision. The woman, remembered for motion, timing, and confidence, had reached a point where even crossing a room could be dangerous. The disease behind the curtain.
Well, it has an impact on my daily life, yes. Certainly on my career, although I do a pretty good job of keeping it at bay.
Moore was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in her early 30s after a miscarriage. At that time, she was already famous, already working hard, and already learning that public charm did not protect a person from private trouble. Diabetes became one of the defining battles of her adult life. She dealt with it for decades, but she also used her fame to raise awareness. She testified, advocated, and became closely tied to diabetes research causes. She knew people listened when she spoke. But the disease did not stay politely in the background. Over time, it affected her body in serious ways. Levine later explained the complication that changed her daily life most was vision loss from diabetic retinal disease. That was not just inconvenient, it was frightening. Moore had narrowed visual fields and very limited central vision. She could no longer read the way she once had. She could not safely move through her own space without the risk of bumping into things or falling. Trying to hide it.
I think it happens. You can't control it. You can't stop it by being a good person. Bad things do happen to good people. Everybody gets something.
One of the saddest details Levine shared was that Moore tried to hide her vision loss for as long as possible. That sounds heartbreaking, but it also sounds very human. She had spent her life being recognized, watched, photographed, and admired. For a performer, especially one whose career had been built on timing and physical grace, losing vision meant losing control in public. It meant needing help. It meant accepting other people could see what she wanted to keep private. Levine said near the end, she was unable to even walk across a room safely. He described the loss as a theft of self. That phrase fits because this was not only about eyesight, it was about freedom, dignity, and the everyday confidence most people take for granted. Imagine being Mary Tyler Moore, a woman who once made a simple walk across a newsroom feel like a statement, suddenly unable to trust the distance between one chair and another. That was the quiet cruelty of her final years. One last TV reunion.
Look at us back together. Oh, let's see. Elka was the bombshell, I was the legs. Diane was the brains, and Mamie Sue was the ditz.
No, you were the bombshell, Diane was the legs, and Mamie Sue was the ditz.
Her final television appearance came in 2013 on Hot in Cleveland, and it carried more emotional weight than viewers may have realized at the time. She appeared alongside Cloris Leachman, Valerie Harper, Betty White, and Gloria Engel, bringing together beloved faces from the Mary Tyler Moore Show universe. To fans, it was a sweet reunion. To those close to Moore, it was also a carefully managed moment. Levine later said she had already lost most of her eyesight by then. Production had to work around what she could safely do. He explained they had to sit her at the table and have everyone come to her. The detail changes the way the scene feels. What looked like a warm gathering was also an act of protection. There's something moving about that. Her old castmates, women who had shared one of television's great comedy families with her, were now literally coming to her. It was not a grand farewell speech. It was quieter than that and maybe more honest. Home in Connecticut.
She was in hospice for almost 2 years, and not communicating. I walked up to her, and I was this close to her, and she didn't say anything. And I said, "Hello, Mary." "Oh, Carl." She couldn't see me, but she heard my voice. We hugged, and it was the last time I saw her.
Moore spent her final days at home in Connecticut with Levine. Their marriage had lasted more than 3 decades, beginning in 1983 after a meeting that sounded almost like a movie scene. She had contacted him when her mother was ill, and what began as a doctor's call turned into a life together. By the end, their world had become smaller and softer. Levine said they'd sit and talk. Moore found comfort in music, including Frank Sinatra and show tunes. For someone who had lived so much of her life in rhythm, music remained a familiar friend. Her death came in January 2017 when she was 80 years old. She suffered cardiopulmonary arrest after contracting pneumonia, with diabetes among the serious health issues connected to her decline. Levine's memories of those days are not loud or sensational. They're intimate. They show a famous woman at her most vulnerable, not as a TV icon, but as a wife who needed help, comfort, and presence. Love after the cameras.
She really was very, very reserved. So on the one hand, the smile was there, and that was essential Mary, and it was truthful and honest and genuine. But there was also that part of her that really wanted to go be alone and sit and read and explore, and be curious about the world.
Levine's role in Moore's life was not just as her husband. He was also a doctor who understood the medical stakes of what she was facing. That must have been both a blessing and a burden. He could understand the disease, but he could not simply make it disappear. Their relationship had survived fame, grief, illness, and the long shadow of Moore's earlier tragedies. She had lost her only son, Richie, in a gun accident in 1980. She had dealt with alcoholism and entered the Betty Ford Clinic in 1984. Levine supported her through sobriety and later through the physical toll of diabetes. After her death, he helped create and support the Mary Tyler Moore Vision Initiative, aimed at preventing and treating vision loss from diabetes. That work grew directly from what he watched happen to her. It gives the final chapter a sense of purpose, but it does not erase the sadness. Mary Tyler Moore spent her life giving audiences brightness. In the end, the disease that haunted her for decades took away much of her own light. Now it's time to hear from you. When you think of Mary Tyler Moore, do you remember the joyful TV legend first, or does learning about her final years change the way you see her story? Let us know in the comments section below.